What up? What up? What up? What up? What up? What up? Hey, what's up, you guys? Welcome to the show. Yet another edition of Mob True Crime with Gene and JC. Today, I have CEO Rod and Gene both with me, and we're going to be getting into a great topic that we think you'll definitely enjoy. Start off here. Make sure that you smash the like button. If you're a hater, make sure you smash the dislike button. We need you guys. You guys push this algorithm more than anybody. Make sure that you ring the notification bell. And of course, leave a comment below. Let us know that you're here. And very soon, we have members only content that's coming on both channels because they're both monetized. And of course, if you do enjoy the topics and you'd like to see more stuff, including videos out in the field and where places where things happen in California, Vegas, etc., you're more than welcome to Cash App. We appreciate it. $ Mob True Crime. So today's topic is going to be do not be flashy. That's one of the things that they always tell us and used to tell us back in the day. And a lot of people didn't listen. However, I actually did, which is probably one reason why I was as lucky and as fortunate as I was to get through this here. Follow us also on our other social media. I'm on different platforms under Mob True Crime. And then, of course, I'm on Mob True Crime on Instagram, as is Gene under Gene Borrello. And then, of course, CEO Rod at Ronnie G. To start off here, just to let you know what the format of this show is going to be, each of us are going to be talking about somebody that we were involved with or knew that was in the life, especially the higher up guys, and a lesson related to being flashy that we've all learned. And we're going to be mixing this in with actual news clips from some of these different people. And so, the three individuals in particular are Gene Gotti. Of course, everybody's heard that last name. Joe Donado, who was the gentleman I had the pleasure of knowing, a very high-ranked mobster in California. And then, of course, Ronnie G. Alonzo, who Gene Borrello was involved with as well. Speaking of Gene, make sure that you guys go to his website, geneborrello.com, if you'd like to find out the latest about him, as well as order a book. Also, visit my website, mobtruecrime.com. And later on in the show, we are going to, at the conclusion here, watch to the end because you're going to see a message from Anthony Ruggiano Jr., who talks about Gene Gotti. Without further ado, hey, welcome to the show to you, Gene Borrello. Welcome.
What's up, JC? What's up, everybody?
Good to have you here, man. And of course, CEO Rod, what's up, buddy? As always, welcome to the show, CEO Rod.
Hey, what's going on, JC and Gene, man? How y'all been, man? And welcome to the show, everybody.
All right. So, without further ado, the first person that we're going to get into is Ronnie G. Alonzo and Gene Borrello. So, Gene, take it away. The floor is yours.
Thanks for having me on the show. Happy to be back. I'm going to give you a nice little story about Ronnie G. Alonzo and how ridiculous he was with his house. As much as I like Ronnie, he was good, but the thing with him is that, he didn't listen to nobody.
Wild new details tonight in a mafia bust by the feds that's right out of a Hollywood movie. An alleged mob boss and 9 of his associates, members of the Donado family, charged with attempted murder, loan sharking, stock swindles, illegal gambling, all of it happening in Queens. Those arrests with nicknames like Pudgy, Chippy, and Bald Chris. Here's Eyewitness News reporter Jim Dolan.
Richard hacked by federal court today after putting his mother's house up as part of a bail package, caught up in a sweeping organized crime indictment that includes alleged co-conspirators charged with assault and a decades-old loan sharking business.
I think this is another one of these cases where the government in the Eastern District of New York has bitten off more that they can chew. I mean, we saw this with Mr. Assaro's case, in which there was a total acquittal.
Ms. Macedonia refers to Vincent Osorio. He is the guy who was recently acquitted of the 1978 Lufthansa heist at Kennedy Airport. But in this case, she represents Ronald Giallanzo. He's the lead defendant in this case and a reputed capo in the Bonanno crime family. The feds say he ran a violent and lucrative loan sharking business in Howard Beach. How lucrative was it? Well, the feds offer this picture of his modest home before Giallanzo became a capo. This is what the home looks like now. The feds say crime paid pretty well for him. His lawyers say the case is flimsy and the charges will never stick.
Scores and scores of cooperators who ultimately, have to pass rigorous cross-examination, and I'm confident that they won't be able to do that.
And have their own case
Have their own
here.
baggage. They come with their own baggage.
If convicted, the feds want Giallanzo and the other defendants to pay the government $26 million, including that house. In Brooklyn, Jim Dolan, Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
We forewarned him. We told him not to build that house. Excuse me. We told him not to build the house. We told him, building a $3.2 million house on a corner with no job, you show $37,000 a year, don't do this. You can't tell him nothing. Don't tell me what to do. All right. So the house ended up coming out to what? $3.2 million. $3.2 million. His front door was $30,000. That's what he showed a year on paper. His roof on his house was $160,000. His bricks alone probably a couple $100,000. He was just crazy. Every bedroom had a bathroom. I designed it with him on the blueprints and everything. He was doing it. They designed it, and the government had a real problem with that house. They actually put it part of his plea agreement. He could not stay in that house and could not buy it back or have somebody else try to buy it back. There was a whole thing they did with that house where he would never step foot near it again. They were really mad over it, and we kind of told him not to do it. But Ronnie didn't practice what he preached. He taught me a lot of good stuff, but he didn't go by it. Like Vinny and Sarah, they did the same things. Ronnie taught me a lot of stuff about that life and everything, but didn't go by the rules. And about being flashy. He told me stop being flashy. You fucking got 5 brand new cars in front of a fucking $3 million house. Don't be flashy. So he was one of those, but he was definitely a real bad guy, and he paid, a lot of people don't know this, but he paid back the most money in Bonanno crime family history for a forfeiture. He paid back a total of like over $2 million. He beat out everybody in the Bonanno crime family, for that family, for forfeiture in federal cases. He was the biggest forfeiture ever paid back. Crazy, right? But yeah, he had that kind of money, and that's it. That house was insane. It brought us down. That house was insane. It was crazy. It was 8,000 square feet. It was an estate. The feds drive by it every day and just laugh. Like, is this guy serious? Like, come on now with this thing. So, him being arrogant and cocky, not listening, that's how he was. Couldn't tell him nothing. So, that's it with Ronnie.
Very good job, Gene. And Ronnie is a prime example of what happens when you get a little too flashy with the money, and a little bit of the hypocrisy of the higher up saying to everybody else, don't do it, but we can. All right. So CEO Rod, you're up to bat next. And, CEO Rod, just so you guys know, he was involved with Freeway Rick's operation out here, went to the federal pen for moving coke. And he and I both knew some of the same weed guys, 1 or 2 guys from south of the border. He did serve time with a lot of major figures, Gene Gotti being one of them. Go ahead and take it away, Rod. Let the folks know about your experience with Gene Gotti.
Yeah, JC, I was in El Reno with Gene, man, maybe 93, 94. And like I say, Gene, he was a good guy, man. He really liked to stay to himself. When I got there, man, I couldn't believe that I was on the yard with a real monster, man. But Gene, like I say, man, he had a little bodyguards. He worked in the laundry. He really didn't work in the laundry. He just hung out, I guess, because, man, his stature, man, he really didn't have to work. Yeah, Gene, man, like I say, everybody respected him. You respected on the yard, man. And I know y'all heard the story before, man. I don't know how true it is, but I know it's true, man. Every morning, man, had not no coffee, man. He had a nice little drink, man. They say he was drinking some very fine cognac, man. I don't know how true the story is, but, man, I was there in 94, 93 with Gene Gotti.
Good evening, I'm Roger Grimsby. Here now the news. The FBI says it's slowly strangling the drug trade of the biggest organized crime family in this country, with the arrest of 8 men in Brooklyn today. The feds say they shut down much of the Gambino family's narcotics business. Mark Haynes tells us how big it was.
According to the FBI, the heroin ring was operating on a huge scale.
This is a multi-kilo narcotics operation. You could conservatively say dealing in millions of dollars a year. Yes.
NYPD Lieutenant Remo Franceschini has investigated organized crime for 20 years. He says the feds have put a major dent in the Gambino family.
These are associates and made members of the Gambino crime family.
Would their arrest be significant to the family? Would it be damaging for all of these people to get arrested, or is it?
It's very significant. It's absolutely significant. It shows that law enforcement is zeroing in on one of the most powerful crime families in the United States.
Among the 8 arrested today, Angelo Ruggiero, allegedly the mastermind of the heroin ring. Gene Gotti, Ruggiero's right-hand man. John Carneglia, another major figure in the ring. And Salvatore Scala, a reputed soldier in the Gambino family. The FBI gathered most of its evidence against the ring by 2 methods. First, they had an informant who penetrated the ring. And second, they planted bugs in this house in Cedarhurst. On May 17, 1982, Angelo Ruggiero met with some people at this house and then met with Confederate Gene Gotti. The FBI wiretap log shows Gotti asked Ruggiero, "You sure those people weren't wired up?" Ruggiero replied, "They were wired up. They gonna get their heads cut off." In fact, there were wires, there was electronic surveillance, but Ruggiero and his cronies suspected the wrong people. The FBI is still looking for 5 more people, including Edward Lino and William Sestaro. The feds suspect they will continue to operate.
I think they're going to maintain a little lower profile in the immediate future, but I think they'll continue. Narcotics is just so lucrative that most people can't afford to stop that are involved. It's just a very profitable operation until you're caught.
4 or 5 years ago, New York and federal law enforcement officials launched a determined effort to infiltrate organized crime and bring it down. Today, those efforts are finally bearing fruit. And both New York and federal authorities say this morning's arrests are just the beginning. Mark Haynes, Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
Yeah, JC, but like I was saying, man, Gene, he wasn't flashy, man. Everybody in the arena know who Gene Gotti was, man. You couldn't help but to know who Gene Gotti was. You know, but like I say, I learned that, you know, like when I was hustling, man, you know, I didn't drive around no Benz, you know, and stuff like that. I had access to one, but, you know, being flashy in the dope game, man, gonna get you caught, man. You know, like I was telling you about Freeway Rick on the last show, man. Rick was never flashy, man. He never wore the big diamond stuff like that. But yeah, we was young, man, so you know, I used to wear, you know, the Turkish rope and stuff like that, but not like these, you know, new dope dealers. Yeah. But Gene, man, like I say, man, Gene Gotti, man, good dude. That's all I gotta say, man. I just watched the guy, man, and see how he moved. You know, he had his bodyguards and shit with him, man. You know, at least people said it was bodyguards. Probably was his partner. You know, but a man of that stature, he probably had a little protection, you know, in the feds. You know, yeah, that's one of my stories about Gene Gotti.
Jeff, come over here.
Okay, you're blocking us. Post. Gene,
how do you feel? How are you feeling, Gene? Just tell us in your own words.
we're feeling good. We feel that the jury gave a correct verdict and a just verdict.
How do you feel, Mr. Gotti?
Easy.
Where'd he go?
Let's get back in there. Come on. Mr. Rampino.
How do you feel?
Were you surprised?
Great job, Rod. Gene Gotti has a good reputation. He was considered a solid guy in that whole world. Did his time. He's home now. I hope he's enjoying his retirement and that everything's going good for him. So now for me, I dealt with the guys in Detroit, Michigan when it came to what I did in the 90s with moving interstate bud and the illegal dice nights that we used to do out here. And of course, I knew some other guys that were sort of affiliated and whatnot that were legit, and also others that have gone legit. And one of the guys that I did get the pleasure to meet was a guy by the name of Joe Donado. You're going to see his video right now. Go ahead and watch this, and then I'll do some commentary on it.
The growth of the mafia matched the urban sprawl of Los Angeles during the 1950s. 85-year-old Joe Donado was a wealthy mobster back then, but he's not proud of his past.
How many murders do you think you had a hand in, whether it was yourself involved or putting out the word, putting out a hit on somebody?
I would say too many.
In 1961, Donato was charged with first-degree murder after shooting his gambling business partner.
We had a big argument, and he came to my house, and we had a showdown, and I unfortunately killed him.
Donato claimed self-defense and was acquitted. The mafia bookie quickly rose through the ranks of a crime family he did not want to identify.
In California, I was almost second in command. Yeah. I was almost second in command. And the guys before me, quite a few of them were to death. They were killed.
Joseph Donato's long rap sheet began in Pennsylvania, where he grew up. Assault and battery, attempted.
You took a shot at one of your brothers.
Yes, I did.
What was that about?
Oh, I just blew my top. He said something about me that I didn't like about, and I purposely missed him.
Joe wanted a way out.
I didn't want to take anybody's life anymore.
Donato had a maid who always prayed for him.
And one day I said, if you're for real, I want to meet you. I met the Lord on Wednesday, March 8th, 1972 at 7 o'clock in the morning.
Thus began his spiritual journey.
And I started to turn all my gambling empire over to my friends. I said, it's all yours. Take it. I don't want nothing of it.
Donato didn't fear for his life when he left the mob.
That I never ratted on none of them.
In 1975, Joe published a book titled Tell It to the Mafia.
I wanted to reach the people that nobody could reach.
Author Wynne Hope was the sister-in-law of comedian Bob Hope.
That guy in the back there, I had everything, and yet I had a big emptiness.
These days, Joe is a resident at the health center of Fresno. Fellow residents and most staffers have no idea this smiling guy has such a dark past. 2 decades ago, Joe came to Fresno to preach at local jails and prisons.
He knew exactly what I needed to become what God intended for me to be.
Hood had found the answer to his prayers.
I thought I was a bad boy and the baddest man it was on the block until I talked to Joe Donado.
After 18 years in the system, Hood was released from jail for good in 1989. Donato inspired him to start Fresno inner city outreach.
I always looked up to Joe because I knew that he was genuine. And I always looked up to him because I wanted to be like him. You know, I wanted to change.
When Joe left the mob, he used his money to help needy kids around the world.
I started selling my properties, taking all this cash, building orphanages in India and Africa, loving every part of it.
And sharing his message with modern-day gangsters.
I've seen a lot of people die in the underworld. You're heading in the wrong direction. You're heading in the wrong direction, fellas.
You can tell me and other men you can change too.
Dale Urong, ABC 30 Action News.
So from Joe, I learned quite a few things. I was talking to him in the late 90s when I was still involved with all this stuff. And, by then he's very well reformed. He's a Christian. He did a lot of positive things. He gave away a bunch of his money that he earned in illegal gambling to orphanages in Africa and India. He helped out American kids. He did all kinds of positive things. So one of the things that he told me right away was that you can't take any of this stuff with you. He's like, whatever it is that you've earned, whatever it is that you've bought, you know, eventually they're going to take it from you. They're not stupid. The government, the FBI, et cetera, they're not stupid. And he had said, always make sure that you are honest about what you did, but also don't do it in such a way that's stupid, that's going to get you in trouble, that there's still real guys out there. And so you have to be careful. But Joe taught me how to leave the life the proper way. When Joe left the life, he gave away his rackets to his friends and others involved and let them take it over. That's basically what I did as well. I originally was going to stop doing things around the year 2000 because I was getting to the point where I was almost done with college. I had one bachelor's degree already by then from Fresno State, working on a second one due to graduate in 2002. And it didn't quite work like that. I kept going, doing some stuff. However, I started handing over my local stuff and started handing over, you know, different things I was doing. I was connecting people together that hadn't known each other to let them start doing it. I started the process of slowing things down, and I started meeting with my bros for the last time. Some guys I haven't seen since. We'd have these little miniature parties. And one of the interviews that I did back in 2017 on a show, the interviewer joked around about how, wow, they gave you a retirement party. And that kind of became a running gag, if you will, as I carried on onto YouTube later on in 2021. But basically, I sort of had like a series of retirement parties, if you will, where I'd have a few drinks with a couple guys and burn a few with them and, you know, shake hands, hug, and tell them I'm going to miss them. And that was that. I went down to Mexico in 2001, the same week, ironically, of the tragedy in New York. What I did was we had scheduled a cruise 6 to 8 months out. And, you know, you always want to travel in groups of regular folks when you're smuggling or meeting people, whatever. And a cruise ship's a great way to do it. Plus, it was an easy way to get down into the central part of Mexico. And for those of you who don't know how these cartel guys worked in California back then, a lot of times they would send their guys up here. They'd sell for 4 months, 6 months, whatever. And then they would go back home and they would swap out another guy. That way, if somebody got arrested or got identified by the police, they usually did a small amount of time and then they would just go home with all that money. They'd come up north, come up to my region and other parts of California, and then go back down to chill with all their money. And so, you know, September, one or two of my bros from California were down there chilling. And so I used it as an opportunity to go down there and say goodbye and that kind of thing. So anyhow, he taught me the right way to leave. He taught me to give away, hand over the stuff, and you won't have any problems. But he also said, don't talk about these guys. If you do, keep it to a minimal. And later on, you can tell the full truth about it. And Joe practiced what he preached. Back in the 70s and 80s, when he had left it all, he was doing ministry work and he would put in his advertisements a former associate. He didn't let them know that he was damn near the one of the top guys at one point. He didn't even disclose his true position within the mob in California until 2017 or roughly when it came to the news. He told me that a long time before. And during the time where I was going through recovery, Joe was especially helpful. He was there to help mentor me. He helped explain to me why it was that I was going through the issues that I did, and that being part of that life has, you don't leave unscathed. You do leave with some scars, and you must deal with those, but don't be braggadocious about it. Don't go around acting like some big man and all that stuff. So later on in other episodes, I will get into some of the things that he did teach me, stuff about the mob, the way the commission originally was going to try to set up California and set up families here, the plans they had for that. He was actually from back east. He was from Pennsylvania originally, came out west to straighten things out in California, which meant, which means something, we'll just say. So we appreciate you joining us here. And we're going to be doing a lot more of these. And as I promised you, there's a special video here right at the very end of this, after the conclusion. For those of you stuck around, you'll enjoy it. And as always, thank you for joining us yet again for another episode of Mob True Crime with Gene and JC. Please visit my website, mobtruecrime.com, and you will find a link to the private equity fund that Gene and I are both invested in. We both put $10,000 of our own money into this. It's a private equity fund. It was set up by a law firm. Everything is by the book. And we are applying to be a public hedge fund with the Securities and Exchange Commission. You do need an NDA to learn about it, so go to my website to learn more. This is through Daily Profit Dave, a good friend of ours. Also, we have another investment that we're involved with that is good for business owners. It's a payroll tax advantage investment. The payroll tax advantage is what it does is it helps businesses save with a free government money program. You can save up to $500 or more per full-time employee per year by going with us. You can lower your workman's comp costs, and your employee get extra free job benefits themselves. And businesses need at least 3 full-time employees to qualify. You will see a link for that also on my website. If you're an employer, you'll definitely be happy that you did. Once again, thank you for joining us. We'll see you guys next time here on Mob True Crime with Gene and JC.
Yes, indeed.
There's Jeannie Gotti and John Gotti, who were gangsters, good guys. I got along good with them. Jeannie was always good to me. He was a funny bastard. John was, so it's these two guys who were the real thing.